My next guest is a successful young woman whose claim to fame has been not just sleeping outside the Grand Ole Opry in a car when she was 22, but she's been a Christian in the world of media. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Dr. Carol Swain. This is the show where we talk about anything and everything and people and whatever is on my mind. Today, my guest is Megan Alexander. If you watched Inside Edition, you will recognize Megan. She is a young woman that has had quite a journey. So help me to welcome Megan to Conversations.
Thank you, Dr. Swain. Good to be here.
Well, it's great having you on.
Yeah, nice to be with you. This is a great set. I'm so impressed.
Well, thank you.
Lovely.
It's been a work in progress.
Congratulations.
You know what I like most about having a show? Is I get to choose my guests. I don't have to wait for the phone to ring. And when I have an idea, all I do is look out in the world and find the person I'd like to talk with and have a conversation. And today it's you.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored. You're in control. You get to push all the buttons when it's your show. That's great.
Well, I mean, yes.
Well, I watch you on television. I've seen you on Fox News and CNN and talking about all sorts of important things. So I'm honored to be here. It's really nice to be in your presence.
You know, one of the things I learned about media was that for a lot of the people, even on the news shows, it's entertainment. And I'm a very serious person. And so, I want to change the world. And it was, kind of a shock to learn that many of those people are entertainers. And so it really is about, what's going to drive the ratings and not necessarily about how to educate people, how to teach them anything.
It's an excellent point. Infotainment. I remember taking a communications class in college, and they talked about infotainment, information. But for television and radio, it's also got to be entertaining, right? To keep the viewer engaged or the listener engaged. And honestly, that's the tension that I live in as a believer, Dr. Swain, is fighting the 20-second soundbite, the 2-minute story, when you could have a 20-minute or 30-minute discussion with someone. But we're fighting people's attention spans nowadays with social media and with all the options that they have. So you're right, it's that element of entertainment and keeping them engaged, when I personally love nothing more than to take my phone, sit on a plane, I'm traveling all the time for work, and watch a long college conversation. Just on the plane, last night I was watching Dr. Cornel West and Dr. George at Baylor University discussing, sort of the tension of one being, more Catholic and conservative, and then Dr. West being, Protestant Christian, more liberal, and then they have this friendship, and it was 30 minutes long.
More Marxist, right?
What? Okay, but it was 30 minutes long, and I thought, I love that there's no commercial breaks, and I can just get in, in the weeds with them and hear the depth of it all. So that's what I'm constantly fighting in this world, but I guess that's our world today, isn't it?
Yeah, and Megan, we're going to talk about your media career and your life as an author, these books. But tell us about your childhood, your family, what went into making you, that young woman that decided that she wanted to, her bucket list was sleeping outside of the Grand Ole Opry in a car.
Well, raised in a Christian home by the grace of God, grew up in Seattle, Washington, and I remember accepting Jesus into my heart in kindergarten, in the toy room, and being very excited, but then really claiming my faith for my own in about junior high and going, okay, is this just something that my family does, or do I really believe this? And in 7th grade, I went to a Christian camp and really dove deep and said, yes, I believe in Jesus Christ. This is who I am, and he died for me, and I want to live for him. So that was junior high for me, and then I always just loved something in entertainment. I was singing, I was dancing, I was singing in the church choir, and wanted to do something in that world because I love creating, I love the camaraderie, I love the make-believe, the magic of this industry. And so I knew I wanted to do something, but honestly, Dr. Swain, I would not say that everyone in my Christian community was always supportive. I write about it in the book that I had a family friend say to me, why would you want to be in entertainment? That's Satan's playground.
Right, but wait a minute. I wanted to talk with you about that. Is like, for a lot of parents, the fact that you wanted to be a performer, and I know some young Christian kids, and they want to be actresses or actors or that type of thing. And parents really are afraid because they know that there's so many temptations. And we've all heard about the casting couch. And, like the world sees you and you're targeted. Satan targets you. So I can see that people would be very worried about a young person that's attractive, they're starting out their career, and they want to do entertainment.
Sure. Oh, and rightly so. I mean, there are real issues and real problems, and Satan is absolutely doing his best to stir up trouble. But I will tell you that attending a Christian school my whole life, K through 12, I was sitting in church and I'm sitting in Christian classes, and as I'm reading the Bible, I'm hearing the opposite. I'm reading the opposite and seeing that God sent people who didn't feel qualified or prepared, right?
Right.
Into those areas and said, don't worry, I will take care of you.
Yes.
Keep your eyes on me.
So did you feel that God called you at a young age to entertainment?
Absolutely.
And that's interesting because, like, a lot of times young people will feel like whatever God calls you to doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. Mm-hmm. And, me being in front of audiences and doing national interviews, I used to be so painfully shy that I would forget my name. And when I was at Princeton, I had an opportunity to be on Good Morning America, and I didn't do it because I was afraid. When I had my conversion experience, God just stripped that away. And he impressed on me that he had given me a message bigger than me and that I need to focus on him. And so you can make it as a Christian in any area that God calls you to. Yes. And I can see why he would call you to entertainment and to media, because that is an area where hearts and minds are manipulated, deceived, and changed, and you have to have Christians there.
Absolutely. It's incredibly influential. I mean, when you see media and entertainment, they tell us what to think, what to wear, what to buy, how to act. So I'm seeing that, and then as a believer, I'm reading stories about Daniel in Babylon and Esther and Moses and all these people, and I'm going, well, wait a second. God always took care of them. Didn't mean it was a perfect life.
Right.
Didn't mean it was always safe and a cookie cutter, but he always took care of them and he always sent them to those places. And so isn't that exactly where some Christians are supposed to go if you feel called? And I thought, well, gosh, I want to have a seat at the table as a believer. Right. And the book is full of stories where, I'm not the most talented, the smartest, best looking person in this industry, but I honestly believed, keeping my eyes on the Lord and saying, God, I'm looking to you. God has put me in situations only because of him. And I also tell the young people, know who you are before you get there. Try to figure out who you are. What are your do's and don'ts? What will you say yes to? What is crossing the line for you? What will you not do? And like, for example, as an actress, if the script has swearing in it, mm-hmm. or perhaps the scene goes a little too far, it's a love scene, mm-hmm. where will you draw the line? Mm-hmm. I never talked about that in my college classes. I never talked about that in some of the youth groups I was in. So I tell the young people, have those conversations now. Literally just say, okay, let's run scenarios, right? As sports players, they run scenarios all the time before the game.
Before you go to college.
Sure.
Like, people ask me, is it safe to send my child, to a particular secular school? And I think that some of our young people are called to be in those places. Yeah. They can be almost like evangelists in those places, missionaries in those places. If God has called them and they know who they are, they can survive that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Megan, we're going to take a break.
Okay.
And when we return, more about your book and more about your life.
Sounds great.
We'll be back after this word from our sponsor.
Conversations with Dr. Carol Swain is made possible by Cooper Steel, a family-owned business that provides the steel fabrications for some of the greatest buildings across the United States. 60 years ago, Kenneth and Faye Cooper founded their company in Shelbyville, Tennessee.
Cooper Steel believes in sponsoring Carol Swain because we believe as she does You build strong, you stand strong.
What started as a vision and now a nationally recognized and operated company that remains true to its founders' Judeo-Christian values and principles, Cooper Steel is committed to excellence, responsibility, and community. Cooper Steel's motto is, build strong, stand strong. They treat their employees and customers like family. Thank you to Cooper Steel for standing strong with Conversations with Dr. Carol Swain. Learn more about our generous sponsor at coopersteel.com.
I'm back with my guest, Megan Alexander, and she has an extraordinary career. And we're talking a little bit about this book, Faith in the Spotlight, Thriving in Your Career While Staying True to Your Beliefs. And so, when did you first start acting? And then, I know you're married, you have children, mm-hmm. and I understand that you and your husband made a pact, had an agreement. You're both Christians. You want to share that with our audience?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'll tell you, one way to silence a New York City boardroom is to talk about abstinence. Uh-huh. Yes, that is our story. I made that commitment in junior high that I was going to wait until I was married. And my husband became a Christian later in life. He found the Lord in the fire department. His fire chief led him to Jesus in Seattle, actually Snohomish. And so when we started dating, we made that commitment together. And we dated for 5 years. So it is possible, folks, to wait until you're married. But yeah, and I honestly, Dr. Swain, I didn't think I would be talking about it that much. I have a whole chapter in the book about it. But I remembered why I made that decision. It was a young couple that used to go to my high school. They'd graduated and come back and chatted with us about why they were waiting until marriage, and they were willing to go there and talk about the uncomfortable things, and they let us ask questions and ask anything we wanted. And I was so grateful that they were willing to go there that when I had an opportunity to share my story, a Christian magazine called My Pastor's Wife in New York and said, hey, I want to put someone in the entertainment industry on the cover of this magazine who waited until marriage. Mm-hmm. I can't find anybody. Do you know someone? And Lynette Lewis knew of my story, and so she called me. She said, would you want to go public with your story for this magazine? And I called up my husband and I said, hey, what do you think? And he said, if it helps one person, it's worth it. If it encourages one person, it's worth it. And so I ended up putting the chapter in the book because it's a part of my story. And I think it's still a really great choice. It worked for me. It can work for other people too.
Well, a lot of parents give their children, their daughters, purity rings. Did you have one of those?
I did not, but I absolutely grew up around some of that. And I, read some of the books. It's
not the same if they give it to you, right?
This is true. This is true. Yeah, and then you flip it when you get married. Yeah, never had that, but certainly appreciate, the values that come along with that, and parents that just want the best for their kids.
Now, as far as your life and career, were you disadvantaged any or discriminated against because of the fact that you were a Christian that you're aware of?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm asked it all the time, and honestly, I've been very pleasantly surprised along the way. When this book came out, I went to my boss, the executive producer of Inside Edition, and we always got to give him a heads up when we do things. Right. If you've got a part in a movie or something, you need to make sure they're cool with it. And so I said, hey, this book is coming out. What do you think of it? He read it cover to cover, and he said, Megan, I have a daughter. I'm all about encouraging young women to stay true to themselves, hold fast to their values, believe in themselves, be the best that they can be. He said, good for you. And I wasn't sure how he would react. And when the magazine came out and I talked about, my decision, my husband and I's decision to wait, he said, I find it compelling. And then he asked me the thing I never in a million years thought he would ask me, Dr. Swain. He said, could we do a story for Inside Edition on your abstinence? I said, sure.
Isn't it wonderful how God used you?
You never know how God's going to work.
And you never know when he's going to use a particular part of your life.
Amen.
Yeah.
And surrender to what the Lord wants to do, right? And then when it's no longer about you, and I stopped being worried and thought, if it's going to glorify him, let's look up instead of at me, then you go, okay, God's in control. It's going to be okay.
Well, I mentioned earlier that I had an opportunity to be on Good Morning America. And this was before I had my Christian conversion experience, and I was so shy. I was so shy that if you asked me my name, I would get nervous and forget it. I had to write out everything, and I was a professor, and I would try to write out everything I was going to say. And when I had the conversion experience, God impressed on my mind that He'd given me a message and that I should just focus on Him. And so when I focused on pleasing God, I didn't worry about making a mistake and people laughing at me and what people would think of me. And it's so much freedom when you reach that point. But usually, I don't think of young people, reaching that point as early as you have, because there's so many things pulling at us. And so it's just amazing that you were able to, be true to yourself and stand for Christ in an environment where you didn't know if you were going to lose your job at Inside Edition. Or,
yeah. Well, there's real risks involved too, right? I mean, I absolutely understand that other people are, on the front lines in other countries maybe, and there's real risks when they talk about their faith. This is entertainment and a television show, and hey, at the end of the day, God is in control, and I realize I'm not, a foster parent or a doctor saving lives, but again, I'm in a very influential industry.
Right.
And I believe Christians need to be everywhere where there's influence.
God has us everywhere, whether you know it or not. And
Amen.
I tell young people when they ask me about colleges and various things that we need to be everywhere, and all of us are not called to be out front. Like people like us, we're very visible.
Sure.
But God needs people, behind the scenes.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of power working behind the scenes. And I also think if persecution ever comes to the point in the United States where we're dying for our faith, and that empowers, whenever the Christian church was persecuted, it grew even faster. But I think that when people stand, there are other people to replace them, and God can empower someone with courage at any point. And so some of those people that may be in the closet as Christians, or they may be quieter, they don't know when God is going to embolden them and they're going to take a leadership role.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And the other thing is respect and relationships. I worked in New York City for several years before I really was openly talking about my faith, and before this magazine opportunity came along to talk about, some of my decisions. You got to build those relationships first.
Right.
And some people have said to me, oh, what did your colleagues think, when your book came out and this and that? I honestly think a lot of them went, oh, okay, good for her. That's Megan. We know she'll make deadline. We know she'll do that story with us. They knew me before, right? Gain the respect, and I appreciate and respect them and what their beliefs are, and they're completely different than mine. But I do think I want to encourage young people, don't lose the respect, right? I feel like we're losing a little bit of that nowadays. Got to build relationships with all different types of people.
That's right.
That's how you engage in the world.
And you don't know how many children of your colleagues that don't share your beliefs that you're influencing, and even the colleagues themselves, because we are works in progress. I look at my life and the different parts of it and where I am today. I mean, boy, I've gone 360 degrees, and so anything's possible.
Amen.
Megan, thank you so much for your insights as a Christian, working in Babylon, the lion's den. You do it so well. We're going to take a break, and when we return, I want to hear about one more hug.
Dr. Carol Swain's Be the People, a call to reclaim America's faith and promise, newly released in paperback and audio with a new introduction, is a challenge to all Americans. If you are serious about being the best citizen you can be, this is the book for you. From addressing moral relativism to reclaiming the future, you'll understand why Dr. Swain is one of the most relevant voices in today's culture war. Are you ready to reclaim America's faith and promise? Purchase at bethepeoplenews.com/books or wherever books are sold.
The Biden administration's executive order on immigration brings to the forefront one of the most volatile issues of our time. In this timely second edition of Debating Immigration, I join my voice to that of other experts to provide you with facts and information that will help you understand what is at stake for our nation. This edition offers 21 original essays that cover race, religion, economics, human smuggling, and civil rights.
Purchase at bethepeoplenews.com/books or wherever books are sold.
Welcome back to my conversation with Megan Alexander. Megan, you have children. How many do you have? Tell us about them.
Yes, 3 kids. My son is 10, my son Chase, my son Catcher is just about to turn 6, and my baby girl Capri is about to turn 2 in September.
2.
So 2, 6, 10.
Capri, that's a very interesting name.
Yeah, keeping with the C's, Chase, Catcher, and I wasn't sure if Capri was a boy or a girl because I didn't find out until she came into the world.
C's?
So, and my oldest son, Chase, saw her lying there in her little pink blanket, and he looked at me and he said, Capri? And I said, that's it. So he kind of named her.
That's great.
Yeah, maybe we'll go to Capri someday. I've never been to the Isle of Capri, so it's an excuse to go.
So what have you liked most about being a mom?
Oh gosh, completely dying to self, right? I mean, I think being a mother has helped me so much in my spiritual journey. I know Jesus calls us to do that anyways, but honestly with my career, it's easy to get self-absorbed and planning and achieving. And I do love projects and that feeling of achievement. But I heard somebody say when you have kids, it's not about you anymore. I have honestly loved that, Dr. Swain. Like I love focusing on them, hearing their opinions about life, saying no to things and putting things in the proper balance. And listen, I'm not perfect. I'm figuring it out every day. But I just love the balance of it all. I love being dressed up, coming home from work, and my almost 6-year-old is like, get on the floor with me, let's play choo-choos, let's play trains. And you're like, okay, here we go, throw off the heels. That's really fun. It knocks me out of sometimes when I take work home from me. I'm one of those people that can't always leave it at work, especially with some of the heavy stories that we're dealing with. Gosh, kids just, they bring you into a place of joy sometimes, which I need, I think. It's been a great relief and a shift for me.
Now, that's my lead into one more hug. So is this for your daughter, or did you write it for your sons?
Yeah.
Or when did you write this book, and what's the backstory?
You bet. Well, after this book came out, Faith in the Spotlight, I met with my publisher at Simon & Schuster and talking about a second book. And I wanted to do a children's book, and I came with all these ideas of girl power and superheroes that are girls. I didn't have my daughter yet, didn't know I was having a girl. And they said, okay, let's just talk about you. Push that aside for a second. How's your family? And I started telling my editor the story of Chase, who's on the back here, who's now 10, and the fact that I travel a lot for work, and he has anxiety getting on the school bus. He would be the front of the line, the school bus rolls up, and suddenly he's the back of the line, and he's running back to me and my husband for one more hug. One more hug, Mama, one more hug, and asking for 4 or 5 before he finally gets on the school bus. And at first, we're kind of hurrying him along, like, come on, let's go. And then we realized he's asking for more than a hug. He's asking for reassurance, and that my editor said, that is your book, one more hug.
Well, those are great looking kids.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I haven't met your husband, but they really look like
They look
you.
just like him.
Oh, they do.
They do. But that's the story of just being there. And again, I travel a lot. And so, my kids ask for one more hug, one more kiss when I'm tucking them in to bed, and they know I'm going to be gone. But it's also wanting to be there for little boys as they share their feelings.
Right.
And wanting that to continue as they get older, that it's always okay to ask for one more hug, no matter what age. And the children's book world is just precious, too. It's so fun.
Well, is it hard to write a children's book? And the reason I'm telling you is that I have a young girl that's 10 years old that I call my youngest best friend. Her name is Olivia. Oh. And this past weekend, I said, we started talking about, she wanted her name in my latest book, which I worked it in. But we're going to write a story, Olivia's Secret. We have the title, but we haven't written the book.
Yeah.
So how do you write a children's book?
You already have it. Write what you know. I couldn't do any other children's book but this one. And this is our story, my son running back for one more hug. So the fact that you already have a title, just start writing what you know. That's what I tell people, is then the words just flow out, and it's an extension of you. And then I partnered up with Hiro Nakata, who did the illustrations, who just brought it to life. But you're already going, Dr. Swain. Just keep going. Get it on paper and let it just come out of your soul.
Well, Olivia's first question is, what is my secret?
Oh, okay. So she's got to still figure that out.
But she's actually a good illustrator, and so I'd like for her to illustrate the book if we write one.
Oh, that'd be amazing. It's a great journey to go on as a family. Like when the book was finally done and I showed it to my son, my oldest son, Chase, his face lit up and he was looking at the pages and I'm like, that's you. So that'll be a precious moment with Olivia when you get to share that experience together.
Well, how long did it take you to write these 2 books, starting with Faith in the Spotlight and then with the children's book?
Yeah, so the children's book just came out. I mean, it's a picture book, and so you only have, 4 to 8 lines, sometimes only a couple of lines on each page. It's simple, it's sweet. This came very easily.
What age group is that for?
They say it's for 4 to 8-year-olds, but grandparents are buying it for their grandkids. Parents are buying it for their children. I hope that there's more there for all generations, right? Because it is telling a deeper story of being there for, our loved ones and offering reassurance. That really came easily. This I wrote on the plane, and it was like a 2.5-year, 3-year process. Just me on the plane trying to pound out chapters and. This is, it's like.
I find it hard to write on planes. I prefer to sleep on planes.
I can't because turbulence scares me. So just when I'm falling asleep, I'm jolted awake. But it's, there's a chapter in there on, I feel like everything that young people are dealing with today. Body image, finding a mentor, negotiating a raise, being true to your values when faced with a difficult, situation. So it took time to bring the stories in. And Dr. Swain, you like me, we engage with some really wonderful people, amazing people in our worlds. And so I went to people that I admire and I said, look, I need your help. Share your stories in this book. And so I had different people write forwards. Roma Downey and Mark Burnett wrote a foreword for the first chapter, A Seat at the Table. Michael W. Smith wrote the foreword for the chapter, Do the Hustle. Kirk Cousins did.
That's a very creative way to do it.
Well, I knew I needed more wisdom. People said,
no.
you haven't lived enough life, so bring in other
Wait a minute,
people.
you need to write another book. So we're going to decide today what the next book is going to be about.
Okay.
Well, what do you think the next book will be about?
Well, I absolutely love Christmas. I think it's that one time a year.
Someone's already written the Christmas story.
Yeah, that's right. But I feel like Christmas is just this grand opportunity to share your faith where it's totally okay through the whole month of December, right? Because of Christmas joy. So I'm hopefully working on a Christmas book, a Christmas children's book. We'll see.
Oh, well, that's great. Another children's book.
Yeah, maybe we should do one together.
Yeah, I want to test it out. I've done many adult books, so I want to try writing a children's book.
Yeah, you're on your way. I
have
can't wait
to write
read
my
it.
memoir first, though, like you did.
Well, yeah, and it's the journey is a joy too, right? We think about getting to the end, but I'm sure the process is really cool.
So, Megan, it has been a delight having you on the show today.
Thank you, Dr. Swain.
And I want you to give our viewers an opportunity to know where they can get in contact with you and to purchase these books.
Yeah.
So would you share your social media handles and anything else?
You bet. Well, I love speaking to young people, encouraging the next generation. So I enjoy being on the speaking circuit. Go to meganalexander.com. You can also get copies of my book there. I'd love to personalize it for anybody if there's a baby shower coming up or a birthday. Both of them are on meganalexander.com. And of course, good old Amazon has them as well.
Right. So we're stuck with Amazon no matter how we feel about the
I
politics.
know, we really are. It's too convenient.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you, Doctor.
We'll be back after this word from our sponsors.
For those of you who would like to know what exactly our children are facing in their education system, this is a must-read book. It will equip you and prepare you to make decisions about your child's health, about your child's education. So I want to encourage every one of you to grab a copy of Dr. Swain's book and join with me and Carol on the front lines in this critical time to eradicate the liberal abduction of our children.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Conversations. I've loved this conversation with Megan Alexander and all the exciting things she has done and she is doing as a mother and as a entertainer and public figure. And she is an inspiration to me and to millions of other people that watch her on Inside Edition. So make sure you go to her website, purchase her books, and follow her on social media.